I am who I am because somebody loved me. Dr. Cornel West says these words all the time, everywhere he goes, because he knows we transform into better people when we are loved into being better people. That's why how we disagree matters. That we will disagree, well, that's a certainty. How we will have conflict is what matters. That we will have conflict is something we must accept if we are here to fulfill our mission of transforming lives through courageous action and soulful connection. I want to tell you about one of the people who loved me into being, for they are also one of the people who I have lost at too young an age. Alandria Williams grew up with me in Knoxville, Tennessee, where we were both a part of the religious education program, the youth group, at Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. She and her twin brother, Frederick, were often on opposite energetic poles. Alandria was spicy, where Frederick was sweet. Alandria was loud, he was softer. He was a big football star. Alandria struggled with asthma and other health problems from time to time throughout our youth. In our 20s, though, Alandria rose to Unitarian Universalist stardom. Nurtured UU youth across the denomination, especially youth and young adults of color. I became a director of religious education in North Carolina, and I started attending the UU annual gathering of professionals and lay people called General Assembly. And Alandria would be there, always, leading anti-racism trainings for over 100 people or more. Later, I would see Alandria on stage, up there in the big stage, leading the annual bridging ceremony for youth or facilitating the right relations team for all of General Assembly, the team that would help us to stay in covenant with each other throughout the conference. Thousands of people being held in covenant by Alandria. Went back to school and traveled the world learning about alternative economies. They helped launch Beautiful Solutions, an online publication devoted to learning more about economies of justice, ecology, and communalism. Alandria worked for the Highlander Center in Knoxville, Tennessee as an anti-racism educator, traveling across the country to meet with various organizations and leaders to advance their values forward. More recently, co-founded the People's Hub, a virtual justice organizing school, just in time. And then, just a couple of years ago, Alandria served our denomination in the highest office held by a layperson, the Unitarian Universalist co-moderator of General Assembly. Alandria was a member of the world community, always traveling, always crashing at folks' houses, planning the revolution, nurturing young people, honoring ancestors, learning from mentors, and staying blessedly loyal to lifelong friends. Alandria passed away far too soon, September 23rd of 2020. A couple of days ago, I received a card from Alandria's mom, Elnora. The card commemorated a quilt that some of Alandria's friends and community had stitched together of Alandria's collection of incredibly bold and conscious-raising t-shirts. Have you ever seen a t-shirt quilt? See, saved all of their t-shirts from every UU camp, every organizing school, every community justice event, t-shirts that would read, Black Feminist Possibilities, Black Nerds Unite, Solidarity Economy, Life over debt. The pass, the release, nothing but net 3-point Lady Vols. In my life, Alandria was always pushing me forward, calling me forward towards greater empathy, a bigger vision of what community could be, reconciliation between my beliefs and my actions, greater generosity of spirit than I had previously. We had conflict. Sometimes we would argue. Alandria was someone who perpetually makes you maladjusted to your personal surroundings and your public surroundings. Like, don't get too comfortable. I would sometimes I would sometimes consider myself somewhat radical until Alandria would remind me just how complacent I had become. We would laugh, we would wonder and argue, catch up, and then E would leave in a whirlwind of chaos and logistics, and I would often be left holding one of E's t-shirts they had accidentally left behind. I would just be left there holding a well-worn t-shirt. One in particular with white letters. One time they left a shirt with white letters that said, "Because we need each other." This is how a relationship moved me toward being a better member of the beloved community, toward reconciling who I am with who I want to be, reminding me to call others forward, to leave no one behind, and also to always be aware of power and question how power works in any given system, in any given moment. Alandria is gone now, and I'm left holding what they gave to me, their legacy of extremism. All the toil, all the travel, all the hard work. To know Alandria was to know someone who was always going without rest, it seemed. In his letter from a Birmingham jail, Dr. King poses a question that has lost no relevance in our moment now. The question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists we will be. Will we be extremists for hate or for love? Will we be extremists for the preservation of injustice or for the extension of justice? Alandria Williams was an extremist for justice. And here I am, holding the mantle Alandria left me, and they left it to us all. It is the same heavy burden Martin Luther King, now John Lewis, Bell Hooks, so many others have left us to hold, to carry. Perhaps after this week, when 2 United States senators blocked yet another iteration of the Voting Rights Act, you have maybe spent some moments feeling hopeless and helpless. Well, this would have been the time to commemorate King's legacy, as his family has asked all of us to do, by working to pass voting rights legislation that would protect the right to vote for all Americans, from Georgia to Arkansas to Ohio, easing the way for all citizens to exercise what is our constitutional right as Americans. This would have been the time to do that. Yet, those who have become adjusted to inequity, adjusted to extreme poverty, adjusted to political impotence and the status quo of conservative extremism, well, they could not do the right thing. And it is difficult in moments such as these to see how the arc of the universe bends towards justice, but that is because it is not a spectator sport. It is our own hands that do the bending. And you are in Georgia. In this moment in time, there is no better place to work for democracy. So if you are in anguish today over the events on Capitol Hill this week, I hope you will not consider Martin Luther King Day a day off, but a day on for voter registration, a day on for serving your fellow human, a day on for trying to be an extremist for justice, just trying on a t-shirt, see how it fits. Because we make a common mistake here at UUCA. We often say we are a beloved community, which can sometimes translate into a group of friends or like-minded people. But as we heard earlier, in Martin's own words, this is not the true meaning of beloved community. The beloved community is where we seek to reconcile our differences, where we appeal to the humanity within each other's hearts and call each other to deeper empathy, where we call each other in through the covenant we all share, one that demands we do the hard work to understand the impact of our words and our actions on somebody else. Our covenant that demands we consider others and their social location before we speak, and before we act, before we write that email. Our covenant that calls us to become better versions of ourselves, to do more, to be more maladjusted to the oppression of others within our community and outside of it. Our sacred covenant that binds us together and infuses our relationships with depth and spark. Our covenant sets us apart from other faiths and other places, other spaces. It's where we have set the compass of our hearts to navigate us to go deeper, work harder, because no one ever changed when they were comfortable. This congregation, which will one day be a beloved community, is where we are relentlessly encouraging one another to become extremists for justice. Amen? Amen. Where, like Elandria did for me, we might clash and ruffle each other's feathers. We might push each other to become maladjusted and push each other towards a more radical perspective. And I do believe the day will come when we will finally be able to call ourselves truly a beloved community. But that day has not yet arrived, friends. And maybe this is a sermon for another time, but I also want to say, when that day comes, it will be worth it. Not only because we will be interconnected through a network of mutuality and challenge. Not because we will all be getting along, because we surely will not. Not because there will no longer be suffering in our community or even alienation. It will be worth it when we will all live in a way that doesn't create martyrs for this cause anymore. So that if you are maladjusted to life outside this community out there, you can come in from the cold and find a place to be free, to be yourself. If you are oppressed, if you are tired out there, you come in this community where you feel safe, comforted, and centered. So if you are marginalized, if you are tokenized out there in the streets, you come in here and feel seen, known and honored for who you truly are. And I'm talking about real martyrdom too. So that one day, so that Martin Luther King Jr. could live to see the beloved community. So that Elandria Williams could live to see the beloved community. So that Mel Reeves activist in Minneapolis could live. Hope Johnson could live. Matthew Taylor, so many more. Bell Hooks could live to see the beloved community in action. The reason it will all be worth it is because we will live in a way that doesn't create martyrs for the cause anymore. That day will come when we will be able to call one another a beloved community. And there is no question whether voting rights is a moral issue. Our own Senator, Reverend Raphael Warnock, said that this week. It's really about the dignity of everybody's humanity and our ability to build a future that embraces all of us. We are building a future that embraces all of us, all of the time. Because our sacred covenant calls us to honor the dignity of everybody's humanity, we must live every day as a day of service. So who loves you into being? Who pushes you? Who calls you forward to take action against the many-headed dragon of white supremacy wherever it cowers? Whether that is in the streets, at the polls, or in your own heart. Here in Georgia, we have our marching orders. We know the work that is before us. There is so much work to be done to protect the dignity of our humanity. May you find your place in the movement and feel the pull of that vision of reconciliation in community because, like the t-shirt says, we need each other.